What's going on, everybody? My name is Ace, and welcome to Ace Plays. Today we are getting back into episode 2 of our brand new live build series of New Mountain View. We're building a gorgeous little quaint city at the moment, but hopefully one day will be large, at the base of, did not see that skybox, we'll fix that later, at the base of a large expansive mountain range set on a gorgeous little beach that one day will be a bustling metropolis. First things first, to start off today's episode, I want to get into a rather large change, but I think one that's fitting for this stage of the series, and that is actually a name change. So those of you who would have already seen the first episode, it will be changed, but those of you who have started the series after episode 2 will have not seen a difference. The reason I want to make this change is I do believe that the name New Mountain View is a bit of a mouthful, so I want to go ahead and change that to Rangeview, which is actually one of my more favorite names of a municipality around me, and I think it's kind of fitting because it is not really a mountain range. It's not it's not a mountain, so Mountain View is kind of like a bit not really exactly correct because it's quite a range here. So we're going to make that change, and I think that is much more fitting for what we've got going on with this small community. Also, a couple things. So I made a couple notes after making the first episode of things that I wanted to change and address moving forward with the community that I thought made a lot more sense. Now, the first thing I want to do is actually fix this little area, because I forgot that Move It actually allows you to edit things that are outside of the map. So what we can do here is rather sloppily put that back in range of the map and take that out. Let me see, might have to bring it in a bit more. Let's see, another node there, and there we go. So now we are free of that ugly intersection there, although obviously that would have been solved rather quickly. Another option we have here is we could of course move these in a bit, but I think if anything I'll do that offline. It's a bit too much time. Another thing I wanted to address is, while building out this interchange and making it a bit more fitting for our industrial traffic, I actually forgot to do something that I thought was very important, which is add a on-ramp on this side that mirrors the off-ramp. So I definitely think in order to have this be a more realistic intersection, we would have both an on and an off. So I think what we'll do is go ahead and do that. And another thing I noticed now that I think I'll address for the, while we're here, is actually creating a more natural curve into the angle of that road. So we'll go ahead and completely remove this exit and create something that has a bit better match to the road. So that's much better. It's far less so the idea is to just create a less sharp turn that cars have to make going to the right, because generally speaking, the majority of the traffic will actually be going over to the right in this situation. So just to quickly fix this, just to make sure it slopes properly, we will give a little Move It going. So it doesn't look terrible. I would prefer it slope naturally up to the top. So let's see if it, there you go, that helps a bit. So that's a much, that kind of looks natural a little bit. I think obviously we could probably, flatten that a little bit, but maybe we'll do that later on. I think it's perfectly fine for now. So go ahead and do that. And to keep the natural, kind of to keep with the natural curve and keeping not very, making sure that the turns are not too sharp for people on the roads, we'll go ahead and do that one on the right side to have an entrance onto the highway. And we'll do the same thing here. Like I said, these are all going to be things that are addressed later on. They are very, almost certainly not going to remain this way, just because I don't really think that it is, like I said, the interchange that we replace here is going to be a full interchange that you can get on and off both sides of the highway, whereas here you have to actually go across to get to either side. So go ahead and make the change. I do want it to be daytime just while we're building here. One other thing that you might have noticed is that the lighting looks a bit different, and that's actually going to be because I forgot when I initially started the series that I had to change the global lighting that was set on this mod. I forget what the mod's called. Ultimate Eyecandy. Great mod, highly recommended. So anyway, we're gonna move on to the last thing, the last holdover from the previous episode, is I want, I think that this will end up being the entry point into this community, and I think the worst possible solution would actually be to have a local road coming off of this and slowing down traffic. So what I want to do is actually create a wraparound that will encompass this area into a more first of all, to make it more commercial, and then also not allow this road to come into this roundabout here that should be really only servicing larger sized roads. So we'll go ahead and make that change right away, and I think that you'll see over time this will make a far more natural traffic progression in this area, although it does look a little silly at the moment. What we'll do, you'll see I have actually a pretty good vision. I think I'll make it maybe a nice little park here, some pedestrian roads, things of that nature. So we'll go ahead and extend this road out a bit, maybe 2 blocks. This looks good. And just to not leave it half done, we're going to just connect these roads up here so that we have our bases covered, and we'll start to see better traffic flow through that area, I think. So line that up a bit. It looks good. 4 looks good. Perfect. Okay, great. And yeah, we'll go ahead and zone these for their commercial usages and break down these. Cool, great. And I think another option, if moving forward, would actually be to actually be car parks on either side of this and put a little service road in there. But at the moment, that's not needed. Our community is obviously still quite small, and I think it'd be overkill at the moment because we actually won't service all. We won't be able to supply. The demand will not meet the supply in this region. So as you can see, we have a crime problem. So what I'm going to do is place a police station in a relatively accessible location. As you can see in this area, there's actually pretty great access for them to get to anywhere. These tangential roads here, and doesn't just kind of limit the, if we put it over here, it's not really going to access these areas. One thing I wanted to touch on from last video is that early game cities can be very, very touchy. So what you want to do, you want to make sure that every change that you're making in the early game is very, very small in terms of rezoning and things like that, because you can very quickly get in a position where you've actually lost all your tax revenue and things like that, and it can actually quickly spiral to losing the city. So just kind of an interesting tidbit of information. I think we'll go ahead and buy that just so that we can have a little bit more access to westward expansion. So another thing I want to check out, okay, our electricity's good. We also did not end up placing that healthcare facility, so I think we'll go ahead and place that this time around. I do want to turn off, I know road anarchy's off, so we will go ahead and place that. And then if we do have enough money, we will have to do a fire station here at some point, because that will undoubtedly be a problem coming up here. So we'll have to wait for that, but luckily, like I said, our cash flow is really good, very, very, very healthy, so we don't have to worry too much about that. I think zoning these as residential areas will in fact help quite a bit with the tax income. Do want to allow for those roads to be built out to connect here, so I will be careful. And also maybe a little bit of commercial zoning here just to kind of create a buffer for this residential community. Cool, looks good. Okay, so yeah, I mean, now that we're waiting for the money to build the fire station, we're going to kind of just wait until that comes in, speed it up a little bit. As you can see, another interesting point that I'd like to make is you can see that the buildings are upgrading rather quickly here, and that's kind of due to the thing I touched on in the first episode, which is emphasizing expenditures on public services early on. That really allows your community to grow at a much faster rate. Otherwise, these are based on, I believe, the land value. So you're really increasing, by adding an elementary school, for example, you're really increasing land value very quickly, as well as services like the clinic and the police station here, and what will soon be the fire station. So just something to keep in mind when you're building your communities. Make sure that you're focusing on upgrading rather quickly, as opposed to keeping it in a stagnated state. So one thing I also want to do is to enforce roundabout rules. And so this mod here is called traffic something. It's Traffic Pro. I don't remember like the whole thing. It's Presidential Edition, Traffic Mod Presidential Edition, I believe. And what that does is actually allows you to do many interesting things with traffic. And one of my favorite is actually enforcing roundabout rules. So they yields, things like that, and it's extremely useful. Highly recommend it. Just one more look through. Gonna take that off. Looks good. Limit traffic flow from that side. So as you can see, you'll end up noticing that I spend quite a lot of time messing with this, messing with the traffic signs, because I do believe it's worthwhile to have this minute level of control over the traffic flow, and I think you'll see it pays dividends as the community grows. Will have very high traffic flow relative to what for having only one entrance and one exit, really, or a couple, I guess 2 exits and 1 entrance. There is quite limited traffic buildup, which is great. So we definitely want to make sure that we keep an eye on that to make sure that we can keep that going. I do think we can. Space already occupied. Let's see. Cool. So it does look a little bit silly, but I think over time this is going to be quite a huge traffic flow area. So we want to just get ahead of that and allow the traffic to flow freely through here. Okay, we do have more than enough for the fire station. I completely missed that. So I think we will get probably just as important as being accessible as the police station. We got to make sure that the fire station is also accessible. Gonna have to destroy these because I don't like the way that looks. And cool. Great. So another thing obviously is I'm sure you guys can see we are having trouble satisfying the residential demand of this area. So we're gonna go ahead and emphasize that here. And I think that the most obvious area to expand is westward, just because as we move west, we have more and more land under the highway that is accessible. And I think that, again, if we're emphasizing kind of the ability to expand into a tourist area, we're going to want to move this way anyway, because that's where the majority of the coastline is relative to the areas. There's only a small portion that's left this way. So, and then that also actually leads to another possible option, which is leaving this undeveloped for, again, like I said, potential usages later on. So we're going to emphasize the other side, and I think in order to start that out, we'll snake this road down the coastline. Oop. And start adding some residential roads here. Just gonna make that a little bit more of a natural curve there. So I do want to keep these rather tight, although I am not the type of person that really enjoys intersections all that much. The way that we handle traffic, as we described earlier, allowing for having very fine grain tuning of the traffic, it does allow us to have more intersections than other builds might. Don't like the way that looks. Just that, there's that node there. That's definitely why it's looking like that. Okay, certainly better. Okay. This here, I would say, is a tad close to the roundabout. So if anything, I think it would be fine to create this, to build this into a small cul-de-sac. I think that's kind of the vibe of this community anyway. So I don't think that that's too big of a deal. So I think we'll go ahead and do that. Maybe potentially add a little bit of parking in the middle, just for people to be able to use that land to its best ability. So we'll definitely see some homes being built here. Be a really nice area, for sure. I screwed that up, I think. Yeah. Well. yes, as you can see, starting to build up. Another option here is actually we don't have parks unlocked. Once we have parks unlocked, you'll see that I'll start making pedestrian paths all through here, as I find them really useful for getting to kind of funneling traffic in the most effective areas that we can. Okay. Oh, and also I was gonna say we could put parking there, but we don't even have parking because the parks are in the parking is in the parks and plazas section of the game. So if that's not possible, I think probably the best idea is just to continue to satisfy this huge residential demand that we have. Definitely going to be our biggest limiting factor of growth, as we're going to need people to be able to fill all these jobs that we're going to end up creating in this commercial area. And I think, like I said before, might be worthwhile starting to build up onto this hillside, and maybe put another commercial buffer here to kind of buffer this road noise from this highway that will at some point very, very far down the road be moved. So we will go ahead and similar to the roundabout here, I don't really want that much traffic coming to this roundabout that is residential. I'd rather keep that maybe connected to this cul-de-sac. Although obviously usually cul-de-sacs don't have that many entrances. It's gonna be better in terms of overlap of uses. We don't want people that are that are mainly traveling residential roads to be mixing with traffic from the highway. It's definitely not what we want here. So okay, so I see. Yeah, definitely one of the biggest things that we're gonna have to be doing is what we're gonna do soon is figuring out this, because having this service as only an entrance onto the highway is obviously extremely inefficient. Optimally, we could just build the roads off. We have $5,000. We should be fine. It would be much better if this was kind of a multi-use area. It's be about 2,000, so it's rather expensive. I think that could look much better than it does. That looks okay. I think it looks okay. It looks very, very strong. Okay, it doesn't look good really at all. So we will go ahead and upgrade this to a 4-laner, two-way 4-laner, and then this can be keep that 2-lane 1-way. We got to make sure, using traffic mod, to make sure that this is not used as a turnaround. Again, another great example of why this mod is so useful. Just limiting the amount of time limiting the amount of traffic mishaps that might happen should you create interesting intersections like this. So we'll continue. Great, okay. And obviously I think we could do a similar setup to this side, where we create this into a 2-laner, and then this area would turn into a 2-lane road, and then allow for bi-directional traffic this way. And I think that's worthwhile as we expand westward. At the moment, I don't know how much use we're going to get out of it, as it is such a low density area over here. So I think now that we're getting some more demand for commercial, I do believe it would be nice to kind of increase the surface area, I guess, or increase the area of commercial that we have. And I think it's probably about time that we maybe say goodbye to this residential zoning. Although, like I said, I do appreciate multi-use areas that have commercial all spread throughout, so that we're not concentrating commercial in too much of one location. Like I said, I don't like that type of thing. So I think maybe what we'll do instead is create the opportunity for corner stores and things of that nature in some of these corners here for our residential community. It's small trips, things like that. It's good to be able to have those in your local area, as opposed to having to travel very far for those. Obviously, if you're going like to special store, things like an Apple store or things of that nature, where you're kind of going once in a while for kind of bigger items, it's not that big of a deal. You're going to travel for that regardless. Or tech support, things like that you're going to travel for, or that say you want to see something in person, like if you're going to Home Depot, you got to measure something that obviously people are going to go out of their way for that. But if you want to get some milk, stuff like that, it's definitely worthwhile to have these zoned for some commercial uses. And also, like, I like to, obviously I go a little bit more into depth than the regular player would, but I like to think that maybe these areas are providing jobs for teens and things like that. So just kind of the way I look at it, I think it's definitely would be nice if that's kind of what these zones are providing for the area. Okay. Great. So yeah, I mean, another thing, like I said, so one of the things you're going to see from this mod is just a ton of residential demand relative to the other zoning areas. So we're just going to continue with that and make sure that we can continue to see the community grow by supplying just large amounts of low density residential area. I do think this is going to be like a bit wide for a single block. That definitely, what that says to me right from the jump is a park. So I think what we're going to do is zone this and keep this as an entrance into a park area, and potentially de-zoning these back rows and allowing those to kind of fill up over time. Or not fill up, but be removed over time. The opposite of fill up. Yeah, I think I'll go ahead and, like I said, we don't have parks unlocked yet, so I'm just kind of thinking ahead now. And I'm also, so one thing I like to mention from the jump, I'm the type of person that builds a lot of parks in my builds, even if they're small. I prefer to provide those. Like I said, emphasizing services very early on gives you a ton of ability to upgrade your buildings from the start. So I think, ooh, cool, tiny town, awesome. Oh, cool. So we got park. Okay, so that's huge. I think we'll definitely start putting those pedestrian paths in. But yeah, again, putting parks early is gonna really upgrade the residential value very quickly. So again, like I said, I highly recommend emphasizing those very early on. I think maybe we'll go. I want to get 7 megawatts, but I also obviously don't want to be too far out of range. Okay, cool, perfect, great, works fine. And public library. So I think public library is a questionable one. I don't really see much benefit from it, especially with the high upkeep. Like we're at 400 a week. I'd rather put a high school down. It's 560. It's only 2,000 more as an initial investment. I definitely don't think the public library provides as much value, especially when when you put in a community college as well as a university. I think that there's less and less point of it, so I'm going to refrain from doing so now. So like I said, I do like putting pedestrian pathways to give people alternate options for getting places, so I think we'll do that here as well. I would like to make this symmetrical, but again, not a perfectionist, so it is what it is. And that looks terrible. That looks awful. Can definitely just move that, so we'll do that instead. I think that would look better as well, just a little bit off. I think I will most likely get some, specific pedestrian path assets that merge better with roads, because I think it does look stupid, but again, just for now, as you can see, people are already using them. Definitely worthwhile putting them there. Gives access to these commercial districts, really good access to these commercial districts. Also gives us the opportunity to zone some residential. I know that I'm pretty sure there are some one square residential, so why not give it the opportunity to flourish there. Some tiny homes. I don't know if any of you are tiny home advocates, but they're pretty cool. I don't think I'd want to live in one, but they seem pretty cool. So yeah, I mean, if anybody wants to build a tiny home there, they are free to do so. I'm trying to look for my parking asset here. I don't think that'll be the right thing. It's such a small area. Yeah, so I think the assets that I'm gonna have are probably not gonna fit. I think it's, you know, it's not a bad idea to just kind of check and see what this looks like here. Yeah, that's definitely not the vibe I'm looking for at all. Just like, you know, the idea is to create maybe a little bit of a residential parking in the middle of this cul-de-sac to provide just, you know, keep the to keep that parking off the road. That's kind of what we're looking for here, but you know, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. Oh, actually that works fine. Okay, so maybe bring that out a bit and then subsequently improve that. Yeah, and so as you can see, you know, I've been in many cul-de-sacs that have this. I know, you know, some people might not like it, but again, you know, I'd rather, if I'm in a cul-de-sac, I'd rather have a central parking area that keeps, you know, transient traffic, you know, guests and things of that nature outside of the road. I will rotate that at some point because I would rather it be like, you know, parallel to the road. So thankfully, it does seem like our commercial the commercial properties are being supported. The demand is definitely being supported. So if we go ahead to our city vitals, we can check the employment percentage is 98%, which again is fantastic. So that means that we do have relatively high usage of these commercial areas, and it's not, you know, people are not there's not too many commercial buildings for how many people live here. So that's great news. We'll continue to zone commercial in that case, and I do think at one point we'll probably put a shopping center here. I think it's a good place for that. So definitely go ahead and do that at some point. So now that we have parks unlocked, I will definitely put this, you know, delineate this area as a park, which will definitely set this spot as a high land value area from the get-go, which definitely want to make sure that we don't, you know, neglect the other areas and maybe put one or two in these larger gaps here. Definitely would be a good idea. Go ahead and place a nice residential park here. Cool. I think maybe, yeah, a nice little gate here would look great. Maybe I think normally when I have parks on a corner like this, I do prefer to create the opportunity for people to come in from both sides, because I don't want to obviously sequester this park to just the people that live on this side of the block. So I will probably dezone one of these, at least one of these. That'll work. At least one of these one square areas, just to allow for people to come in and out and make sure it's kind of not just sequestered this side. So you'll see I do spend a lot of time trying to make sure that you know, this only impacts as few buildings as possible. It's definitely my goal here. I don't want to, like I said, you know, early cities can be very, very fragile. If you start demolishing things, people will start getting pissed, and it's not a good thing. So you definitely want to make sure that that's as you know, as on an as needed basis. Do you think? Just cut that off there, and then yeah, my concern really is this road here. So if we can just demolish that one house and create a 3x3 zone here, or 3x4 zone, that would be perfect. So that'll create a lot of great traffic through this park. Get a cafe there, and then maybe a plaza as well. It's a bit large. Thinking that it's not the most, I mean, like at this stage of the city, it's not the most important thing to get the park set. So I'm not super concerned about making it perfect. We'll upgrade it as needed, and maybe at one point when the city's population is much more stable, we'll actually eminent domain this entire area and then just create this as the park. And not create, but emphasize that this neighborhood is really to support a park, as opposed to to a couple residential buildings. So it's a good size block. It's an oblong, weird shape, so it is a perfect candidate for that. So I think now's definitely time to build a high school. Kind of want to, we have the elementary school here. We have the fire station. We have a lot of commercial. So I think the best plan is to probably place it in this area, just so that we're, again, diversifying the traffic flow. It's a very important facet of making sure that the traffic is not too overwhelmed in this area. Misplaced that road there from the start. I would prefer this to be straight. Cool, great. So, and I think this right here is an absolutely perfect spot, and potentially create another good option would be to create a park right here in this area that is beside the high school. So I think potentially leaving this unzoned and creating a park in and around would be another great option. Again, I like to diversify where the parks are. I don't really want to sequester them to one neighborhood. I think that kind of creates a situation where you're going to have worse distribution of land values, which just isn't helpful. It's not a moral mission. It's just not helpful for making sure the city is running well. Definitely want to make sure that it's Elm Heights. I don't like that. If you guys have another name, for sure let me know. We'll definitely get that in there. Definitely don't think that Elm Heights would work for this type of community. Maybe a beachy name. So for sure, if you guys have any ideas, let me know. So as expected, this doesn't have any income because the visitors, the visitors aren't exactly on time. It's delayed usually, so they simulate how many people are coming in, and they add to that later. So you do usually see profit with parks, although that's not, obviously the upkeep is so low, 128 per week, that I'm not even concerned slightly with it. So it's just an added benefit. One of the more strange things that you end up seeing actually is when you build with a campus extension to the game, if you actually end up building a university, you actually see positive. If you create which is true with real universities, if you create a football team, you make a big stadium, you actually make money off the games, which we see today actually. So definitely strange, but I guess a good income source for the community. So it is what it is. As you can see, like I said, just with this mod, you're going to see some level of difficulty filling these jobs when they first plop down. It's to be expected. I'm not that worried. I think that they will fill over time, so I'm not gonna stress out about that. And I think the next episode will definitely start focusing on unlocking transit. So we're at 2200. I think we can get there pretty quick. Once we get that unlocked, I mean, we're smooth sailing, and these jobs will be serviced much easier. So I think that'll do it for today. I really appreciate those of you who stuck around to the end of the video. I know this again was a long one. I'm going to try and keep them probably around 20-25 minutes moving forward, but I got carried away. Really enjoying playing with the city. It's a really awesome map, like I said, and I'm very excited to grow. And the beginning of the map will always be slower pace, and over the next couple episodes, you'll start seeing much better growth. So keep an eye out for episode 3. That should be coming out in the next couple of days. And one other thing I wanted to mention is that I actually had an idea of having the YouTube series with a live build, as well as maybe having a Twitch stream where I have the another build running at the same time. So not the same city, because I don't want to spoil things, but maybe creating having a different map, maybe suggested by the community, and then we'll do a Twitch stream that we build on that one, just so that there's a little bit of diversity, and if people want to see live builds for a couple hours at a time, we want to be able to support that. And then I probably will most likely make recaps for that weekly. So definitely, let me know if that's something you'd be interested in. I would love to do that for those of you that want to be watching live content, because I like streaming anyway. So again, really appreciate you coming out and watching and supporting the channel. If you liked it, make sure you subscribe. If you liked it, make sure you like the video, and hit the bell icon if you want to be notified for episode 3. Thanks again. See you guys later.